Thank you all for being here today. I'm excited to have this meeting. Thank you for those who drove in from a long distance. I know that takes a commitment and time out of your day, so thank you for doing that. We will go ahead and determine our quorum through introduction of commissioners. So we'll just start right here and work around the room and make sure we have quorum.
I'm Kaylee Kurth. I'm a clinical pharmacist at Southwestern. I sit on this board as a representative for PARD as a foster parent.
Good morning. My name is Lindsay Laird. I work for OCCY and I was appointed by Senate Pro Tem Greg Treat.
I'm Mike Warren. I'm a judge of the district court and I am chair of the JJOAC and here on behalf of the Supreme Court.
Good morning, I'm Jason Hicks, the district attorney for the 6th Prosecutorial District, and I'm the representative from the District Attorney's Council.
I'm Jacqueline Aaron. I'm the director for CASA of Western Oklahoma. I'm the representative for CASA appointed by the governor.
Good morning, Melinda Front, Director of Department of Rehabilitation Services.
Morning, Rachel Holt, Executive Director for the Office of Juvenile Affairs.
Ellen Bittner, CEO of the Healthcare Authority. Sandra Balzer, Assistant Attorney General. I'm not a member of the board. The board's legal advisor.
I'm John Schneider from Youth and Family Services, and I'm proud to serve appointed by the governor on behalf of the Oklahoma Association of Youth Services. Do we have those virtually joining us today?
Yes, good morning. I'm Brad Wilson. I am an attorney from Ardmore. I'm the representative on the commission for the Oklahoma Bar Association.
Hi, I'm Brenda Myers. I am the director of the Comanche County Juvenile Bureau, and I sit representing the Metropolitan Juvenile Bureaus.
Hi, I'm Lisa Kelly. I'm with ABS, and I'm sitting in today for Megan Patton, who's out sick.
Is that it? Perfect. Thank you. Thank you everybody for being here. You know, I'll have to say, as we go around the room and read our names, I see everybody through a different lens now after our board retreat. You know, after going through and talking about our whys and why we're here and why we serve and the passion we have. So it's just kind of neat to look around and hear everybody's voice and see you through the lens of that passion. So thank you for being here. Okay, we also want to welcome Assistant Attorney General Sandra Balzer. Thanks for being here today. And we also need to turn it over to Ellen Hardy for some housekeeping things before we get rolling.
Yes, good morning. For all media inquiries, please see the chat box. You can contact our public information officer, Robert Agnew. His information is on there. During the meeting, we might be interrupted by a mandatory reboot of the system. If that happens, we will get back online ASAP. Knock on wood. And unless you're a presenter or a commissioner, please keep yourself on mute and off camera during the entirety of the meeting. And there will be no public comment during the meeting unless you've previously signed up to do so. Thank you and have a good meeting.
All right, thank you for that. Okay, do we have a quorum?
I need to do roll call.
Roll call. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Let's do it.
Commissioner Aaron,
Yes. Present.
CEO Bittner,
Yes.
Director Front,
Yes.
Commissioner Hall, Commissioner Harrington, District Attorney Hicks,
Present.
Director Holt,
Present.
Commissioner Kurth,
Yes.
Commissioner Laird,
Present.
Commissioner Myers,
Present.
Commissioner Reed, Commissioner Schneider,
Here.
Secretary Shropshire, Commissioner Slayton Hodges, Secretary Walters, Judge Warren,
Here.
Commissioner Wilson,
Present.
and we have a quorum.
Thank you. Agenda item number 2 is public comment. We have no one signed up for public comment, so we will move on to agenda item number 3. Discussion and possible vote to modify or approve the minutes from the June 2023 commission meeting. I'll entertain a motion.
So move.
Have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second, any discussion? Please call vote.
Commissioner Aaron,
Abstain.
CEO Bittner,
Abstain.
Director Front,
Yes.
Commissioner Herring, no, sorry, District Attorney Hicks,
Yes.
Director Holt,
Abstain.
Commissioner Kurth,
Yes.
Commissioner Laird,
Yes.
Commissioner Myers,
Yes.
Commissioner Snyder,
Yes.
Judge Warren,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilson,
Yes.
and the motion passes.
Thank you. Agenda item number 4, discussion or possible vote to modify or approve the minutes from the August 18th, 2023 commission meeting. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Second, any discussion? Hearing none, please call vote.
All right. Commissioner Aaron,
Yes.
CEO Bittner,
Yes.
Director Front,
Yes.
District Attorney Hicks,
Yes.
Director Holt,
Yes.
Commissioner Kurth,
Abstain.
Commissioner Laird,
Yes.
Commissioner Myers,
Yes.
Commissioner Schneider,
Yes.
Judge Warren,
Abstain.
Commissioner Wilson,
Abstain.
and it passes.
Thank you. Next, we have agenda item number 5, review of the 2024 proposed meeting dates. We have a modification to that, and we need an approval to approve the new meeting dates.
So moved.
What's the modification? Is it the November 29th date?
I believe so, is that correct?
That's the day after Thanksgiving.
modification.
Oh, I'm sorry, it says modify. I just read the.
Yeah.
Okay, so we just need to approve the dates.
I would recommend we look at the November 29th date. It's the day after Thanksgiving. Could we perhaps look at the following?
And what is Thanksgiving?
We thought it was the 23rd, 24th.
I think it's the 23rd. Oh, maybe I looked up that wrong.
For 2024. That's of this year, but for next year, I think it is the day.
Yeah, it does say the 29th.
The 23rd this year.
I know, but are we talking about?
We're talking about 2024, correct?
We messed up.
It shows the 29th on the sheet.
I was like, for next year.
Good catch, Lindsay.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure I won't be here.
Me neither, no.
I would like to propose the following Friday, December 6th. Replace the 29th with December the 6th
Or
for next year.
scoot it back a week earlier.
Forward.
Yeah.
I would propose that we move it before the 29th rather than after.
Second.
Well, I wonder if the rest of our dates are good.
I checked them. I don't think they're on anything.
On it. We probably sent them all in 2023, who knows now?
I mean, that April 12th is my daughter's birthday, but other than that, we're
What is the final date we're looking at? Sorry.
22nd. I move to approve the proposed meeting dates with the modification of changing November 29th to November 22nd for 2024.
I'll second the motion.
First and second, any further discussion? Let's call vote.
I'm sorry, District Attorney Hicks, did you second? Okay, thank you. Commissioner Aaron,
Yes.
CEO Bittner,
Yes.
Director Front,
Yes.
District Attorney Hicks,
Yes.
Director Holt,
Yes.
Commissioner Kurth,
Yes.
Commissioner Laird,
Yes.
Commissioner Myers,
Yes.
Commissioner Schneider,
Yes.
Judge Warren,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilson,
Yes.
and it passes.
Awesome, thank you so much. We have adjusted the agenda slightly, and so we are going to move down to agenda item number 11 for a presentation from the Children's State Advisory Work Group. And I will welcome Deborah Smith to the floor. Thank you for being here.
Good morning.
Can I stand for the best?
Yeah, I think the podium works best. Yes.
Seems formal. Yes.
Does it have sound in it?
No, you're good. All right. Good morning, everyone. I'm Deborah Smith. I am the chair for the Children's State Advisory Work Group. I'm also the Director of Adult and Family Services at OHS. So happy to be with you today. Thank you, Commissioner Schneider, for having us, and Jacoby, thanks for having us. We would like to provide to you today an update on Resilient Oklahoma and the work that we've been doing with the Children's State Advisory Work Group. So that's the last slide. We're not quite there.
Oh.
That's how I did make it short. I know you have a packed agenda today.
Apologize for
So Resilient Oklahoma is really a movement to support healthier families and stronger communities. Oh, thank you. So we'll give you a little bit of an update about that. But first, we're going to start next slide with Children's State Advisory Work Group. Oops.
Oh, it's, yes. Turn on.
The Children's State Advisory Work Group was actually created decades ago by the Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse when they were working on really a transformative change around systems of care and improving the behavioral health of children in Oklahoma. So this group has continued to meet for decades, even though that is no longer a requirement of that grant. And the vision in the beginning was really focused again on behavioral health of children, but it has expanded to be more about the well-being of children and families across Oklahoma, as opposed to just focus narrowly on behavioral health. So we meet monthly. We're made up of, you can go to the next slide. This is our membership. We are made up of parents. We also have some parent foundations, Evolution Foundation, Oklahoma Family Network. And then Tavon Lewis, who's with me today, is going to speak some. He's the cross systems coordinator of that group. He currently is housed with OSU Circa. And then we have membership with all of the state agencies that serve children and families in Oklahoma. So if you're a state agency, you'll see your membership here. Melinda, you have very good membership, very regular attendance. So do you, Rachel. In fact, your team members have provided a lot of leadership in this space. So I just want to shout out to your staff. They've worked very hard over the last couple of months, always, but the last couple of months especially, to really look at our vision, narrow that a little bit, and really focus on some deliverables that we're going to touch on today. Next slide. So for a couple of years, we were working on two different projects, trauma-informed care. There was a work group, and then there was also Thriving Families, Safer Children. Each of the groups had very similar vision and mission and focus. The trauma-informed care work group was really looking at equitable access to resources. They were going out and doing training around ACEs and PACEs, really the impact of trauma across the state. And that was actually part of the legislation that was required, but that did, what's it called, sunset? But they were still meeting and still do. So that membership you see, really we're focused on awareness and education. And then on the Thriving Families, Safer Children side, it was more about preventing entry into child welfare system and really looking at how can we strengthen communities, improve service coordination across systems, and really community level work. They did some work in LaFleur County and Northeast Oklahoma City, but it was just kind of getting started over the last year and a half. So this year, when we looked at these two different kind of groups and their mission, their deliverables, we realized there's just so much alignment that maybe we were not being as efficient as we could, and we could all come together with one mission, which is the Resilient Oklahoma movement. We also noticed over the last 6 to 8 months, the alignment with the governor's child welfare task force that's been meeting. Tavon and I are both members of that task force, along with many others, and working on different areas of support and risk factors. That report should be coming out soon. So we did notice through our work over the last 6 to 8 months how much alignment there was with what that group was really saying was a priority for Oklahoma, really aligned with some of our efforts that we were focused on. So it was interesting to see and pleasing to see the alignment across those systems. So moving forward, gonna pass it over to Tavon. He's gonna tell you kind of what our vision, mission, values, some of our goals, deliverables. We're gonna keep it really brief today. It's kind of a teaser because we could talk for days about this. So we'll keep it pretty high level, but there's a lot more detail. So I'll turn it to Tavon.
Thanks, Jan. So as you can see, Resilient Oklahoma, we really wanted to focus on how could we bring these large teams together, our trauma-informed work group, plus our Thriving Family Safer team, Thriving Family Safer Children team, into one unified effort because it's very broad across our state. So we came up with one vision, a mission and values that the team worked very diligently on. We brought in our national partners to help us come up with this. But our vision is that every family lives a safe, prosperous life and has equitable access to individualized supports and services within their community to reach family goals. And there's one vision that everyone can see where they can fit in. And then we have a mission to build services and supports for families in Oklahoma that strengthen families, prevent child abuse and neglect, and reduce the impact of trauma. Because every one of our systems, we all work together to either improve our communities and how can we reduce the impact of trauma. So we realized, it's important to keep our values. So we wanted to recognize that systemic barriers is a factor. We want to prioritize the voices of our customers, the clients, the youth, families who utilize our services from our systems. And then how can we act to identify and eliminate some of those barriers for our families? And how can we work collectively? Because there's a lot of our agencies and partners work in silos, but we work better together because we're all focused on the same mission, same vision, and that's improving our families and communities and our youth. Our values, we have 3 values, which are making sure we co-design. So really understanding the needs of our families and what's causing some of the problems and how can we work with our agencies to improve on some of those problems. So that's where co-design come in. It's really co-creating a new system or improving processes together. Equity, making sure we provide that equitable access. If there's resources that is in one county, how can we provide equitable access to another county that's facing the same problems? And then just that collective impact, working together in partnership. Our 4 goals that our team came up with, it took a lot of back and forth, a lot of conversations to broaden our goals. And one of our goals, goal 1, is to coordinate our efforts across our systems and communities. That was one of the goals that came out of the task force as well. So it aligned directly with the Children's State Advisory Work Group. Then building awareness in communities about preventing and mitigating trauma and building hope. That was another goal that came out of our trauma-informed care work group, really focusing on how can we mitigate those effects and spread the awareness of trauma in our communities that have high risk factors. How can we build our community capacity on goal 3 through supports and resources? So thinking about prevention, thinking upstream, and then how can we enhance our understanding of our families and communities in our state? We all know that different communities need different resources, different services. So how can we better meet their needs? So those are our 4 current goals. And we have action items, and we won't go into the weeds. I think we want to keep it high level. So yeah, we have action items and a process in place for a lot of these goals. And some of our deliverables, we're working on a Resilient Oklahoma website. It's currently in development right now. We went across the state. We've held multiple focus groups, really making sure that this is something that will meet the needs of our communities and really build that pathway of trust between our agencies and our communities. And that's kind of where we're wanting to have that impact. And then how can we identify different communities for expansion and recruit local partners in critical sectors to participate? That's the essence of Thriving Family Safer Children, where we all work together in partnership and go into those communities together that has those high risk factors that are impacting data and think upstream. How can we prevent that and provide more resources? And then supporting one platform. I think that everyone understands that there's multiple platforms that cause confusion to our community. So how can we all support one platform like other states and just push resources, services there to better coordinate and streamline access and make it more efficient for our agencies as well? And then how can we create a pathway for community collaboratives to bring their challenges to the state level? So we're working on a pathway for that. So we have multiple coalitions throughout our state. And what we want to do is figure out how we can pull in agency staff and attend some of these coalitions and identify needs right there in the community. So help communities understand and identify some of those needs and help them problem solve at the community level, leveraging some of the state resources and programs that are available. Sometimes communities just don't know. So if we pull in some partners and community members and some of our coalitions, we'll be able to help them identify their needs, and then we can elevate that up to our state level and help them solve it if they can't solve their community needs on their own. And we want to provide an opportunity for everyone to get involved. This isn't just, DHS or OJA or Department of Rehabilitation. This is a true partnership, and we want to make sure that everyone can see a place where they can fit in to help prevent child abuse and reduce the impact of trauma. And we're going throughout the state to implement different co-design sessions. We started last year where we went into 2 communities and we listened to a lot of needs from communities, and it was eye-opening. So we were able to take some of those needs and intertwine that into moving forward and how we could build a better process, because what we realize is that the communities are ready. The communities need support, but we needed to get our stuff in order and figure out, how we can better meet their needs at the same time. So that's where we're at. We took a step back and we had several meetings where we started planning and thinking about how we can broaden this process and pull in the right partners. So what's next?
You want to tell them a little bit about your role as cross systems coordinator before I cover these?
Yeah. So my role is I'm the cross systems coordinator. I've been in this position for almost 2 years, and I help coordinate our systems. I'm a little nervous in front of all you all, but I've been doing this for the past couple of years, and I work closely with our national partners, KC Family Programs, any EKC Family Foundation, and they provide strategic guidance into improving our states. So that's kind of what we've been doing over the past year. And my position is currently with OSU. And because the growth and the progress of this work, they felt that they're not the best fit for my position. So they've had discussion on transitioning my position to somewhere else where we can find more support for this type of work. And I believe OCCY, they said that they're the best fit for this position.
And we agree.
So that's kind of the new transition. And it's been a lot of hard work. It's been a lot to get us here. We got a lot of vested members that are very vested in this work and in the greater good of improving our community. So.
So yes, we want to first of all say thank you to OCCY for raising their hand and being willing to be the host. We feel like it's the right fit with the work that you do at OCCY to bring this work to you. We know there will be additional support available through Mark, and I think Danielle's on the phone today and through Annette Jacoby as well. So we're excited for that transition. I do want to say this is not all new work. We're building on some of the successes that each of those groups have already had. We're not recreating all the wheel, but we are getting a little bit more concrete in deliverables about what are we actually going to do and what are we going to deliver. And an interesting switch this year, when you get to people's money, that's when you really see if it's true collaboration, right? Are people willing to actually put money towards effort collaboratively? We're happy to say across the groups, we got right at $500,000. The groups put in pieces of money to work towards this. So state agencies saying, well, I'll do this and I'll do this and I can do this. So that's when you're really getting closer to true collaboration and coordination. So we're happy about that, to be able to fund some of these strategies that we have and some of the deliverables that we have. Additionally, transferring the position, but also in late October, 10 of the CSAW members are attending a gathering in Tempe, Arizona. It's a Thriving Families, Safer Children gathering of the 12 or 15 states that are doing that work. So we're excited about that. We're taking some parents, and thanks to OCCY, we're taking some, and EKC Foundation, we're taking some youth as well to really learn lessons from those other states. What are they doing? Steal their ideas shamelessly. So we're excited about that. And it is completely funded by KC Family Programs and the national sponsors. Also during the September monthly meeting, we really finalized our goals and strategies. There's a lot more detail in the weeds than we gave you today, but But next, we're ready to start implementing some of those deliverables. But again, I want to say your CSAL members, the chair, cost systems coordinator, we'd like to schedule a meeting with the state agencies to come and sit down with your leadership teams to go a little bit more in depth. See if you have suggestions for strategies or additional things, and to make sure we're aligned with your vision and your goals. So we hope we'll like your CSAL member, and then the two of us will come and present to you. So your CSAL member will be reaching out soon to see what date we can sneak in and tell you, give you more than just the teaser we gave you today. And then we really just want to look for more opportunities to be efficient. We definitely discovered our first meeting this year, I think it was in March. We asked every member to list all the work groups, advisory, task force, initiatives that they were involved in. Anyone have a guess of how many that would have been for that group? Wild guess, Annette? Over 160.
Oh, wow.
So we were even surprised ourselves. So we really are looking, we're not saying this could replace everything. We're not saying that, but we're definitely duplicating a lot of things in Oklahoma, a lot of strategies, a lot of work. So we're looking for more alignment and ways to be more efficient with your staff's time and with our resources. So we'll continue to look for those opportunities. So thank you for having me. Are there any questions? Yes.
When does the Resilient Oklahoma website launch? What's the timeline for that?
It looks really good. We didn't think we could fit it into our 15 minutes today, but it looks really good. So we've got to get all of the content loaded. But the vendor is like really close to, I think we're the ones that are like, okay, we want it to be perfect. We're like, okay, we just need to go ahead and launch and then build on it. But it's really hard to just push the button. We're really close.
Yeah.
30, 60 days. I don't know exactly, but
Maybe a month, maybe 2 months at the max. It's huge. It's a lot of different partners, and we want to make sure that the content, our trauma-informed work group, they're helping just going through the content, making sure it's structured right, making sure that it's accessible for our community. So yeah, and we have a beautiful animation, but
yeah,
it might be a little.
It'll be in your longer presentation.
Yeah.
We have a really great, and we also we'll have on that website ways to register for announcements, or to be kind of like a resource newsletter, but then also signing up. So if you're a community collaborative, how can you get your issue or challenge to this group? If you want a speaker, if you want technical assistance for your community, there'll be ways they can fill out a form or request and get that to our group on that website as well.
It's a lot of great work happening in our state, especially for improving our children and our families and our communities. And I know our Lieutenant Governor, he's really focused on highlighting the great work in our state. So let's do that for our child and family well-being systems. Let's highlight all the great work happening through our states and show other states how we're making a difference.
Good point. Any other questions?
I just have a comment. Y'all did great and you're awesome. I love, no pressure, but you have a lot of work ahead of you. And this is so awesome because, I was, because DRS is really focusing even more with the Lieutenant Governor and others on our workforce participation rate and, removing barriers for people with disabilities, et cetera. And it all stems from family engagement and, for them to be successful. We know if you don't have it modeled in your own home, where can you get that? And so, it's just connecting all of this. And as a cross systems coordinator, you have a huge job and I'm excited it's landing here. Not that I love OSU, go Pokes, I bleed orange, but I'm really sad that they didn't see a fit for them, but I'm really excited here because I just see you doing so much in the future. So I think you're gonna be great. So kudos.
Thank you.
Just echo what you said about it landing here, because just last month we had a board retreat and we talked about the power of breaking down silos, and all of us here at the table working together towards exactly what you're talking about. So this is really well timed. As a commission, we're very excited about your work, and you did a great job. I'll echo that as well. So thank you. Thank you for your presentation. Are there any other questions or comments? Okay, we'll move on. Thank you so much.
Thank y'all.
That PowerPoint, by the way, will we get that, Kathy? Sure. Okay, thanks.
And next, we will move on to agenda item number 6, presentation approval of the financial report. And I will turn it over to our business manager, Babu.
Thank you very much. I'm Google Haq, and it's my pleasure to introduce myself as the business manager at OCCY. To begin with, I would like to thank you all for giving me the opportunity to present the financial report for the month of August 2023. With your permission, I will start. Today in my presentation, there are 3 agenda items to discuss and approve. However, I won't take that long time. I will start with the first part of the presentation, that is the financial report for the month of August 31st. It is worth mentioning here that we discuss the financial reports on monthly basis with our ONES colleagues, and we make sure that to identify any areas of concern and address them accordingly to ensure all financial requirements are met and we are on track with the financial goals. So to start with, it's the first. It's a snapshot of our current financial year's budget. We have allocation in system for the 4.4 million. If you see the year-to-date budget that is for the 2 months, for the month of July and August, it becomes 744,000, and utilization as of 31st August, we spent up till now 431,730. It makes 9.6% of the total utilization of the total budget allocation. If you see the budget variance analysis summary, keeping in view the major account codes as per the nomenclature described by the state of Oklahoma. In personal services, we have utilized, I tried to present both figures with the annual budget and year-to-date budget, because at this point, it would be more like appropriate to understand, because we are in the beginning of the financial year, we can compare both our annual targets and year-to-date targets. So if you see overall, we are 9.66% as per the annual budget allocation utilization. And if you see for the 2 months of allocation or year-to-date utilization, it becomes 57 or 58% probably. So we are probably on track, and overall we see our major area of expense is personal services. If you see the things as per the detailed budget account heads, this is the slide that shows all subcategories of budget heads and their spending, overall year-to-date spending and annual utilization. And we are almost on track with overall year-to-date budget utilization. If we look at the budget variance by departments, we are here, the same data is basically broken into different departments, administration and all other programs. And we see the different expenses up to date as per the annual budgets and year-to-date budget. You may notice one of the things like the MDTs. It has the large allocation, big allocation, but this is basically for the disbursement to the MDT teams, and it would be done probably in the it goes with the calendar year, and it would be disbursed majorly to all MDTs in January. This is our cash balance report. different cash balances and available cash under different class funds. And we have, these are the appropriation balances carry forwards for the year 22-23, and this is our 24s up till now, the appropriation received. We may notice we are low in revolving fund balance, very low. One of the reason for that is most of our program activities are grant funded and are on reimbursable basis. We spend actually first and get it reimbursed later. So on average, the lead time for getting reimbursed is 45 days to 50 days. But sometimes it takes more and it may take up to 2 months. So that is why this is showing up a little low at this point of time. But definitely we have got reimbursement this month that will be showing up next month. This presentation or this report is basically based on PeopleSoft financial system generated reports. For the more detailed report, if you want to look at, we have these reports in the commissioner's packet. And basically these are the 6 main reports that based this presentation. I'm here to try my level best to respond any questions, if any. Overall, we are good in shape with the financials and we are on track with our goals. Otherwise, I would request to move a possible motion for our discussion for the approval of the financial report.
Great, thank you so much for that presentation. Any questions at this time?
I have some general questions, so just new person question. How does the revenue come in? Is it all appropriations? Do we get any, tax allocations? How does our general budget get funded?
Almost, I have a slide showing later on what are the bifurcation of our revenues, but we are getting almost 52% from the appropriations and 12% from the carryovers from the previous financial years, and other are the grant funded projects that includes the CGA grant, that includes the PDG grant, other grant funded projects. So majorly, yes, the appropriation are the major source of that.
Any other questions? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve the financial report.
So moved.
Second. Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please call vote.
Commissioner Aaron,
Yes.
CEO Bittner,
Yes.
Director Front,
Yes.
District Attorney Hicks,
Yes.
Director Holt,
Yes.
Commissioner Kurth,
Yes.
Commissioner Laird,
Yes.
Commissioner Myers,
Yes.
Commissioner Myers,
Yes.
thank you. Commissioner Schneider,
Yes.
Judge Warren,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilson,
Yes.
and the motion passes.
Great, thank you so much, and thank you for your work on that. Next on the agenda, we have agenda item number 7, discussion or possible vote to approve the budget revision.
Thank you very much. Here's the second part of my presentation on budget revision and to the state financial year 2023 and carry forward funding. As we know that accounting is an ongoing process and we carry over the unobligated funds remaining at the end of one financial year to the next financial year to cover the allowable cost. So before going for further details, I would like to share the previous trends or track of the total budget carryovers. In financial year 19, we have this much of the carryover, and that goes little above in financial year 2021, but we were back on regular, like the figure in 22. This is our current actual financial year 23 carryover we are getting to move forward up till now. Overall, we have still we would be needing is a budget revision later in November. The total figure at the time of budget working, what we were expecting, it was 415,000. But at this point of time, we are just doing the revision for $288,132. So if you see all, to compare overall our year-end cash balances, these are the last 4-year figures that shows the total cash balances at the end of financial year. So for the year 2023, we have reported this total cash balance at hand on the close of financial year.
Could I throw in one thing just to point out for those commissioners who've been around for a while? So if you remember in 20, we had some money stockpiled for the database. We're told that's not enough. So we held on to vacancies and did things to squirrel away more money. And we've been saying for a bit now that money will eventually go away. Like it seemed like a lot of money at the time. Well, we're coming down to that point where that extra money, one-time monies will be gone. So just wanted you to see that trend going down like we had said it would happen. And that's thanks to a lot of just tight money managing like you would do in your own household. You want to buy a new couch, so you save the coins from the old couch and you squirrel them away and you go buy the new couch. So that's kind of what happened here. And I just wanted you to be aware. So when we do part 3 of this presentation and you're like, oh, they're asking for money, and you'll understand it's because at some point this extra stockpile will be gone.
So for this year, up till now, for the financial year 23, we propose the budget revision with the total amount of $288,122. And we are moving forward this money to the respective account codes related to professional services and fund development and overall ongoing our database project. So this is the total amount of the money we are doing budget revision. Once again, I am here to respond any questions. We had a great discussions yesterday in the finance committee meeting. We really appreciate valuable inputs by Ma'am Melinda and Ma'am Michelle. We discussed both these items in detail. I would like to request if they would like to do a motion for the approval of the budget revision.
Questions?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please call vote.
Commissioner Aaron,
Yes.
CEO Bittner,
Yes.
Director Front,
Yes.
District Attorney Hicks,
Yes.
Director Holt,
Yes.
Commissioner Kurth,
Yes.
Commissioner Laird,
Yes.
Commissioner Myers,
Yes.
Commissioner Schneider,
Yes.
Judge Warren,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilson,
Yes.
motion passes.
Great, thank you. Next on our agenda is agenda item number 8, discussion and possible vote to modify or approve the state fiscal year 2025 budget request.
Thank you very much once again. And I would like to start with the last, this is the last part. So regarding the budget proposal for the state financial year 2025, basically we are due to submit the budget proposal by the 1st of October. So we have planned, we we have detailed discussion before that in last month with our program manager, program team. Just to have a snapshot of our current budget allocations or current budget major sources. We see our major source of revenue for this financial year currently is the appropriation. We are getting 2.8 million from the state appropriations. That becomes almost 56% of the total revenues. And rest of the revenue sources are basically carryover funding from the previous years or federal 40 grant, other grants. So almost the 56% of our carryover, our revenue is basically from the appropriations. And thinking about the 2025, this is the slide we basically shared at the time of approval of financial year 2024 budget. And we analyzed that our appropriation is basically funding the funding the payroll expenses. We see the appropriations are 2.8 million. Our total payroll cost at this point of time is 2.6 million. So we remain with the very tiny amount to play with, and this covers only our operational costs, rent, utilities, admin, and other expenses. So we were looking forward to have some more enhancement in funds. But overall, we are not before starting, it's just to have a trend in mind for the budget or financial thing. So these are the 3 years trend, and especially because I already mentioned that our major expenditure is basically personal expenditure related to the payroll. So these are the trends for last 3 years, financial year 2023. We are currently in 2024, so 3 years data is here. And if we look at the overall variance, we have 5.5% variance in the personal expenditure. And this data is basically based on the FTE data and yearly actuals by the OMS or budget work plan. So we variate by the 5.5%. We almost utilized all the expenditures, all the budget allocations in financial year 2023. Overall, if we see the turnover rate, last year, the employee turnover rate was 18%, but in financial year 2023, it remains to 8%. So that is basically the major expenditure head. We are not asking for anything big or new expenditure for the year 2025. However, we are genuinely seeking to enhance finances in 2 areas that are ongoing and important. Number one is basically requesting a little more value addition to the juvenile competency by adding 1 position. And the other is database. And we all know that the database is crucial to the OCCY ability to implement its regulatory responsibilities. The database, however, require technical support, maintenance, report generation on ongoing basis. So we would request to cover these costs as a database maintenance and report generations. So these are the 2 tiny areas we want to enhance. Total proposed increase in appropriations are 248,255. If you see the overall state appropriations for the last 3 years, in 2023, it was 2.5 billion. And for the current year, it was an enhancement of 360,000, and it becomes 2.8 million. And for the upcoming financial year, we request to enhance these appropriation with the amount of 248, and it will become 3.1 million. So we have detailed discussion yesterday in the finance committee meeting. If members of the finance committee would like to comment or discuss anything.
I just want to say I appreciate the discussion we had yesterday. And there were amendments made to the original juvenile competency request based on comments that we made in the discussion we had. And so I appreciate that. As someone who represented DAC in writing of the juvenile competency law when we did it in the old OCCY meeting rooms. This has been around for a while, and OCCY just kind of picked up because it was undefined who got to own it. OCCY owned it, and Mark has done an incredible job on top of all of his other duties in managing all of those requests and getting those requests done and getting those orders and keeping that. We've had a few discussions both here and then in a smaller group on the lack of competency restoration. I'm hoping the Children's Service Plan can help with that eventually. And that, I've talked to other states about this, and there really is no state that's doing it well, but we need to figure out something. And so I think the state and OCCY stepping forward to have a person dedicated to kind of manage these cases, keep eyes on it, and I know that they will start working towards finding the correct competency restoration program and have one person dedicated to knowing where the cases are and what the needs are and pulling the parties together will fill a vacuum. It won't solve a vacuum, but certainly fill a vacuum. And so I appreciate the amendments being made for the discussions we had yesterday. On the database, I mean, that's what that stuff costs. If we want to know what we're working with and be data driven as all of us want to be, and as certainly our state should be, that's what that costs. And so those are my comments on the two requests. I think that they are appropriate.
What she said, I agree. And yeah, I mean, I really didn't have the background on the juvenile competency, so I was really thankful for Rachel and the comments there. But database, everything's going up exponentially on everything. So that's a minimal fee, quite frankly, to be able to support. So I wholeheartedly agree with it as well.
I just have two questions. Could you go back to what is the evaluations portion of the competency piece of that? Is that outsourcing an external evaluator?
Yeah, so per the Juvenile Competency Act, there are credentialed forensic evaluators, PhD level people that do those. And at first, originally OCCY was just paying for those evaluations, right? And were they originally 500 each, and now they're 50? What's the fee now?
$12.50 per evaluation.
$12.50. But these are really these evaluations take hours to do the testing, hours to analyze all the additional document, and then you write it. And then a lot of courts are then requiring those experts to come and spend the day, maybe testifying, maybe not. And so I actually think the fee is pretty low. In fact, that's why we only have 4 current and only 2 active. But OCCY has been paying for those, and I've been asking for us to ask for money for that. Because again, they filled a vacuum that need to be appropriated for it. Thank you.
And to remember, this past year, we were given $60,000 dedicated appropriations to cover those evaluations, but that's not enough. I think, did we complete 69 evaluations this year?
There were 69 orders.
69 orders.
Last year, yes.
And every year since this program has started, which I think was 2018, is that about right? 17, okay. We've seen an increase anywhere from 15 to 20 a year. So we anticipate we'll do more than 75 next year. So we know we're going to need more than 60,000 to cover even this current year. We can use some of those leftover carry forward monies to fill that gap. But in the future, we're just gonna have to ask for it. In the statute, it says that the families can be charged to pay for these costs, and we well know that we would probably never have these paid for. So we've just chosen to do this, and we've been given money now, and so we feel like it's a very good use of money, but we can't subsidize it with coins in the couch anymore, and we really need a dedicated source. So 60,000 is a good start. This would give us an additional 53,000 or so. So we'll have enough to perhaps do more and keep up for a bit. And then we'll come back to you should we not be able to cover those costs again.
My other question was regarding the database. Do we have a database manager on staff, somebody to work in the database and present those?
Great question. So we chose to work with OU because they are serving partly as our evaluator. And if you see, some of that monies would be for them to actually write reports for us. We are considering, we gave up our evaluator position a year ago, if you remember, so that we could give some staff increases in pay. It was a decision we decided to somewhat outsource the evaluation component so that we could help our staff with salary. It was just one of those, you got to pick one or the other, and we needed to help the people we have now. And so right now we're relying on you to be that, but we may move in a different direction should we have funding or be able to figure that out.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Thank you all so much for serving on that committee. I know it took time, and we appreciate your input and expertise in that area. And thank you very much for your hard work. These last 3 agenda items are a lot of work, so thank you very much for all of that and your professionalism. I'll entertain a motion to approve the budget request.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? Please call vote.
Commissioner Aaron,
Yes.
CEO Bittner,
Yes.
Director Front,
Yes.
District Attorney Hicks,
Yes.
Director Holt,
Yes.
Commissioner Kurth,
Yes.
Commissioner Laird,
Yes.
Commissioner Myers,
Yes.
Commissioner Schneider,
Yes.
Commissioner Judge Warren, Commissioner Wilson.
Yes.
And the motion passes.
Great, thank you. Next on the agenda is agenda item number 9, presentation of the annual review of the freestanding multidisciplinary teams and their functioning status per statute. And I will turn that over to Brittany Gassner.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Brittany Gassner. I am the program manager for the freestanding multidisciplinary teams here at the commission. That's not the right slide. There we go. Thank you. So I have been here since October of last year, and I must say that I have enjoyed this first year. It's been quite the ride. So we're going to start with what exactly is a freestanding multidisciplinary team. And I appreciate that we've had a lot of discussion today about how we operate in silos, and we need to not do that, because that's the whole point of having a multidisciplinary team. We're bringing together the agencies that deal with child maltreatment, putting them all at the table to talk about what we know, what we need to know, and how do we protect children. Oklahoma is unique because multidisciplinary teams are actually required by statute and are defined as 2 different types of teams. We have the freestanding multidisciplinary teams, and then we have the child advocacy center-based teams. Those freestanding teams are not dependent on a child advocacy center. They operate similar to what a child advocacy center team does, but they don't necessarily have the resources available right there that they're going to go ahead and send those children to that resource. 6 core disciplines are required by statute. That includes somebody representing medical, representation from law enforcement, child welfare, mental health, and prosecution. This can be the elected DA, it can be an assistant district attorney. Usually it is the ADA that handles the juvenile deprived docket, which does make sense because these are the kids that they're seeing. Freestanding teams are not used by the Child Advocacy Center for their accreditation purposes. Like I said, they're two separate teams, but they do have some crossover as far as who serves on those teams. Generally, you will see, well, I have a perfect example. I originally worked for Mike Fields in District 4, Kingfisher County. Mike has 5 counties in his district. 2 of them have child advocacy centers. 2 of them have freestanding teams. We had personnel with law enforcement and child welfare that actually served on both of those types of teams because they served multiple counties. So we have that connection, which is important, but we are different, totally different entities. There is a dedicated coordinator who is responsible for tracking all of the information that comes through the team. So this is all of our statistical and demographic information for the children that are staffed, as well as keeping track of how funds are spent, preparing that budget, preparing the contracts, and working with OCCY. The teams each have the autonomy to include other agencies and service providers as necessary. No one knows a community better than the people that live there. And they're the ones who know what resources are available and what would best serve those teams. So you may have a team that has the 6 core disciplines, but then they've also included a representative from school-based social workers, or they've included somebody from systems of care, or they've included somebody from OJA, because we do see those cases cross over. What we're looking at, though, is the safety of the child and the best way to promote that. So we want all the voices represented. Last year, the 38 teams that you have on your list staffed cases involving 4,677 children. So when we go to a staffing, what does that look like? It amazes me when people ask me what I do and I explain the team and I go, okay, what does that mean? So I'll tell you what that means. Every case that's staffed starts with a report. And that's that mandated reporter who suspects something's going on with the child, and they make that call either to the hotline or they call law enforcement. Once that report is made, whichever agency receives it has to act on it and determine whether, let me rephrase. Department of Human Services, when the referral comes into the hotline, there's some determination made as to whether or not it proceeds with an investigation. It's all based on the information that's provided by the caller. Law enforcement doesn't have that luxury. They have to respond to every single call that comes in. So that investigation will begin either with Oklahoma Human Services or law enforcement. One of the big things with MDTs and the statute is they promote joint investigations. So if we have a case that a caseworker from DHS goes out on, and they're suspecting that there might be some criminal elements that need to be addressed, they are going to pick up the phone and call a law enforcement partner and say, hey, I need you to come out here with me. Also, when law enforcement goes out, let's say they have to go out on a domestic violence call, they get there, there's children in the home, they're gonna pick up the phone and call DHS and say, we need somebody to come out here to determine whether or not that child is safe. So the investigation happens. They look at the protocol that each team has. It talks about what kind of cases we're going to staff. If that case falls within that protocol, they're going to contact the coordinator and say, hey, I have a case that needs to be staffed. They show up at the meeting, and then that whole process starts. So we start with, what do we know? That investigator is going to present that case and talk about, this is what I did, this is what I found out, this is what I know. And then we're going to figure out what information do we need. There are always questions. Everybody at the table can ask that question. And sometimes the questions may seem irrelevant, but when you have so many people at that table from so many disciplines and with so many different connections to the family, information needs to be shared, and that's the best way to do it. One of the things that was fantastic about the team that I came from in Kingfisher County is I was the coordinator, but I was also the victim services provider. So if I had seen a parent, or I knew that that child had come in, or I knew that the perpetrator had been arrested on different charge, I could share that with them and let them know, hey, the child may be safe because the perpetrator's out of the home. Or mom came and bonded him out 2 days ago, so you might want to go in and check and see what's going on. We're discussing what do we need to promote the safety of the child. That is first and foremost. What do we do to keep this child safe? What resources do we need to do that? Do we need to make some service referrals? Do we need to maybe see about getting mom and the child to safety? Do we need to file a deprived case? And what further services are needed once we answer those questions? What do we do next? Now, there are cases that we have come in that are pretty straightforward. We had a referral, they went and investigated. There may or may not be something going on with the family, but the information that we have is pretty straightforward. It's really not anything else that the team is going to do. So the team will close that case. Those are pretty few and far between. Usually the case comes in, we have questions, we're waiting on additional information. So we're going to keep that case open in order to make sure that nothing falls through the cracks. We just want to make sure that the questions get answered. Everybody has the information they need to make the decisions that they're going to make to keep the child safe. So in Oklahoma, we have now 38 freestanding teams that cover 46 counties. I'm very excited because Greer County is our new team. They are considered provisionally functioning because this is the first year that they qualify for funding, which is fantastic. I'm really, really excited about that. But the other 37 teams have been functioning for a while and have been getting funding every single year. So the counties that are in gray are adjacent counties to teams that, while they don't have a freestanding team themselves, they can send cases to that team because they do share law enforcement and DHS. So what do these demographics look like? Victim ages based on our statistics we received from the team last year. You can see that highest age group is at 0 to 6. That's pretty standard. Different types of maltreatment that teams talk about. Sexual abuse is the very first one that we talk about. And these cases, because we have law enforcement and Department of Human Services on, you may or may not know that if a perpetrator is not in the home, if the perpetrator is not in the home, DHS will not go out and investigate that case because the child is safe, the perpetrator doesn't have access. Law enforcement has to go and do that case. So we do get cases from both. The neglect cases are the next highest, and this could include educational neglect, medical neglect, physical neglect, emotional neglect, if it's reported. Yes, sir.
Is this in a 12-month period?
Yes. It is. This goes on the state fiscal year. So this is from July of 22 to June of this year. Physical abuse is our third. And then of course we have witness to violence, drug endangered, or that other category, which sometimes we see maltreatment that doesn't necessarily fit in any of these other categories. So I did a little digging because I'm curious, and that's what I do. So Department of Human Services, for that same period last year in the counties that have freestanding multidisciplinary teams, had cases concerning 20,375 unique children. Now, you do the math, that means freestanding MDTs are staffing about 23% of the cases that DHS gets. And there's actually a reason for that. So in those cases that DHS investigated last year, 17,883 of those cases involved neglect. Now, by protocol, most teams determine how they're going to staff neglect cases. Every team is different. So the assumption that I'm making based on that, on the numbers and based on what I know from working on a team, is a lot of times those neglect cases don't get sent to the team for staffing for a multitude of reasons. But that is something that I plan on pointing out to the coordinators and going, we might want to reconsider how we're wording this in our protocol. Because we all know that those neglect cases can lead to cases that are worse down the road. So racial and ethnicity of the children that we're seeing across the board, majority of the children that are in case staffings are white, but we do have everything. Contributing factors. Alcohol and substance abuse is the number one factor, followed by domestic violence and intimate partner violence, mental illness, and divorce custody issues. A lot of times people see that and go, how does that affect? Unfortunately, you do have cases where there will be a custody issue and there's an allegation of some sort of abuse. Usually it's sexual in nature. That has to be investigated. And in the process of that investigation, after they've done what they need to do, they determine that, no, this was just a custody issue. As sad as that is, it does happen. The relationship of the alleged perpetrator. This is important because abuse of a child does not happen in a vacuum. While we would all like to think that it is stranger danger, it's that person out on the street that is the one that's abusing our children, abuse requires a relationship. They have to have access to the child. Number one, parent or step-parent, followed by an adult relative. This is an uncle, an aunt, a grandmother, a grandfather. Unknown perpetrators, again, we get those reports from law enforcement that a child will say something happened, but I don't know who it is. Parents, significant others, other known adults. Coaches are great for that one. Child relatives, we are seeing cases where it's a child on a child. Adult stranger or child stranger. So OCCY is tasked with, OCCY is tasked with providing, that is the word that I'm looking for, thank you. They are tasked with providing training and technical assistance to the freestanding team. So last year, we had 27 training events with 93 different sessions. 12 of those were repeated topics and 64 unique sessions and topics. So we utilized 23 local trainers and 15 national trainers in these trainings. We had 1,122 professionals that attended these trainings, and we provided 223.75 hours of continuing education. Some of those did have continuing education units offered and provided to the attendees free of charge. So 18 of those sessions were virtual, 8 were provided in person, which is fantastic that we're getting back into in-person trainings. And then we had 1 training session that was a hybrid. I think we've decided virtual or in person are the way to go. Hybrid is a little harder to do. So the database. We are working with OUE teams to get the database established that the coordinators will use during case review. This is the very first time that freestanding MDTs will have a database like this, and they're going to be able to track statistical and demographic information that they previously hand counted. So most teams use a staffing form that they keep track of that information, and once a quarter, they compile all that information into a spreadsheet and send it to me, and then I compile all of those spreadsheets into a report that I can look at and see what it looks like across the board. Database is going to make that unnecessary. I'm just going to be able to pull and look at a county anytime I want to, which is fantastic. The coordinators are also going to be able to update their team membership and the training in real time. So one of the things that we look at during review is, did the disciplines complete the 10 hours of required training per year. Sometimes that's difficult to get because we get training certificates, we stick them in a file, we don't necessarily give them to the coordinator who is begging for them by the time review comes because they're going, we need to have this or we're going to get dinged on it. They're going to be able to actually just put that into the database and I'm going to be able to look and see who's completed the training. So 3 of our FSMDTs have piloted the database. The initial reports were very, very positive. They were really, really happy with the ease of use and the information that they were able to put in and get out of it. I'm really appreciative of the information that we're getting because right now what we use is very, very basic. You saw what the statistics look like. We're going to be able to do a little bit deeper dive into what we're looking at, especially in the types of maltreatment, because we've set that up to mirror what DHS reports. So when we're looking at physical abuse, we're actually going further into it and what does that look like? So we had an initial training in June and there were some concerns raised during that training about the information we're asking because the easiest way to do this is for the coordinators to enter the case information just like they would on a staffing form, which includes personal information. It includes names, it includes dates of birth. So there were some concerns raised about whether or not we had the ability to have that information. We've requested an opinion from the AG's office and that is in the works right now. So as soon as we have that opinion that we can provide that to the teams and the user agreement that the teams will sign, we will be able to get the teams using the database and we're hoping that that's going to be soon. But the rollout will commence once we have all of that information. Our accomplishments this year. So I started last October, which is when the contracting process starts for the teams. And I was very, very happy that when we hit the end of December, 35 of the 37 teams had totally completed that process. We had all of the paperwork into the state for them to get their payment in January. The 2 teams that had that hiccup actually ran into some unforeseen challenges in December, contacted me immediately, went, hey, we've got to change our contract. So in the process of getting them to get that paperwork back to me, get all the checks and everything done, it took a little longer for them to get their money, but they did get the money eventually. It just took a little bit of time. The database project is complete for OCCY as far as freestanding teams go. We're just, like I said, we're waiting on those opinions so we can go ahead and get that rollout done. Initially, the database was set up to track training. That was it. We expanded it to include the case review because we're going to be able to get that information so much easier and be able to do so much more with it, including looking at outcomes and looking for trends. We have also worked with Child Advocacy Centers of Oklahoma to develop a joint MDT foundational training for the freestanding and the Child Advocacy Center-based teams. So when we conduct this training, we actually pick an area where we have both a Child Advocacy Center and freestanding teams. We invite everybody to come to the training together. And then we talk about why we have teams, how they got started, best practices, trauma-focused response to families, how to watch for secondary trauma within the teams, and other matters of that nature. It is a 2-day training, which it's a lot of information, but we are encouraging the teams to attend to not only build those relationships with each other so we can work together more efficiently, but also to remember why we do MDT and why it's important. So this year, the biggest news is that the CAMTA appropriation was increased this year. It basically doubled. So that means the functioning freestanding teams are going to receive more money. I'm anticipating that it's going to increase to about $30,000, which is about $10,000 more than they've received in the past. The annual review process was completed on time and without any issues. All 37 teams passed, and we had 1 new team that was designated as provisionally functioning. And the contracting process for all the approved teams, once you approve the teams, will begin in October. So for the future, I've been contacted by representatives from 4 different counties about starting a new freestanding team in their area. The information has been sent to those people who've contacted me. I'm continuing to follow up with them to see when they're ready to proceed. And at some point in time, we're going to have a few more teams. And we are looking at a rules change that would allow peer review to be used by the freestanding teams. Most disciplines have some form of peer review that they use. Freestanding teams have never done that. So I think that that would be a fantastic resource for teams, especially for new coordinators who maybe have never done this before. Or existing coordinators who are going, we got to do this a better way because what I've been doing in the past isn't working anymore. So what is everybody else doing?
Who on the team is paid?
I'm sorry?
Who on the team is paid?
Some of the teams have a coordinator that is paid, but everybody else is a volunteer. And not every team has a paid coordinator.
Just, is it money, people, or what as to why there's not all 77 counties covered?
So 20 counties are actually covered by child advocacy centers, which would negate the need for them to have a freestanding team. The rest of them, in order to establish a freestanding team, you have to have the support of the elected DA. And some of them haven't reached out and said, hey, I think we need this as a tool.
So a couple questions I had is like, first of all, you could answer this, but what 4 counties reached out to you?
I can't.
You can't disclose that?
No, I can.
Oh, okay.
I absolutely can. Osage County, Pawnee County, Hughes County, and Kiowa County have all contacted us about this may be something that we need to do in the future.
So another question I had is on your map, there was a lot of northwest that was white. They didn't have a freestanding. And then they couldn't refer because they weren't in a gray, so they can't even.
Well, but some of those white counties have the child advocacy centers.
Okay, so that was my next question is what area on that map have both? Do you know?
So the majority of child advocacy centers in the state are east of I-35. So this side of the state has the majority of them. When you get to the western side of the state, it is Canadian County and Garfield County. Both have child advocacy centers, and that's about it. We do have a couple of freestanding teams that are currently working on establishing child advocacy centers. Once they do that, they will no longer be freestanding teams. But I know Jackson County is currently working on accreditation. Texas County has, which of course is up in the Panhandle, has started talking about maybe becoming a child advocacy center, but they are in the very early stages of that.
What about K County? They have a child advocacy center, correct?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Custer County is, we're meeting.
Okay, so Custer County is planning a child advocacy center as well.
Meeting Monday.
Okay.
Yeah, very beginning stage.
And that's exciting that they're in areas that they can support a child advocacy center. What we run into though is we have some of these more rural counties that they just don't have that kind of support, which is where the freestanding team is so important because we're able to provide that resource for the investigators, for the prosecutors, and training for medical and mental health that they can better serve these families.
Did some of these areas have an FSMDT before, and do they ever lose them?
It is possible to lose a
Okay,
freestanding
just
team.
curious.
So the review process is pretty strenuous as far as the documentation that they have to provide and all of the hoops that they have to jump into. I can tell you that I did have one county, McIntosh County came very, very close to not qualifying for funding this year. They just barely squeaked by. And when I called the coordinator to talk to him about that, One of the issues he'd had was that nobody had provided him with any of the training certificates. And while that's 3 points, doesn't seem like a lot when 28 is the max that you get, and you have to have 22 to pass. That those 3 points can make or break you. So when I called him and talked to him about that, he said he'd received some after he'd submitted his paperwork, and I said, well, if you want to send it to me, I would be happy to consider that and see if we can increase your score a little bit. And his response was, nope. I've been telling them and telling them and telling them, you have to get this to us. If you don't do it, we're going to lose our team. That this is the perfect opportunity for me to bring this in and go, see, we almost lost it. So do better. And mine's more of a comment. I serve on our freestanding team and Jackie was our coordinator for years before that, but we've actually started staffing our coordinated community response teams, our domestic violence and assault right before the child, because there was so much overlap. And so we learned, oh yeah, there's a 1 and a 2-year-old in the home. And so those things just came out of it, and it's really been a good model for us. And I absolutely support the peer review process. If you can go and learn from other teams. Absolutely. And a lot of the freestanding teams are now including representatives from domestic violence on their team, because we're seeing such a prevalence of, we have domestic violence, we have children in the home. And one of the trainings that we're doing with law enforcement is when you go out on one of those calls, be aware, look around, even if there's not a child right there in that moment when you're on that call. Is there anything around the house that would indicate there's a child in the home that could be at risk? And if there is, let's make a referral to DHS so they know what's going on and that we can have some more eyes on that child.
Any other questions, comments?
You do have the list of the 37 teams that were eligible for funding this year, and we will need to vote on that to approve those teams.
Hearing from Annette, I think there's 38.
38
potentially.
total, yes.
38 total, and so I will entertain a motion to approve the functioning status of the freestanding multidisciplinary teams.
So moved. Second.
So moved. First and a second, any further discussion? Please call vote.
Commissioner Aaron,
Yes.
CEO Bittner,
Yes.
Director Front,
Yes.
District Attorney Hicks,
Yes.
Director Holt,
Yes.
Commissioner Kurth,
Yes.
Commissioner Laird,
Yes.
Commissioner Myers,
Yes.
Commissioner Myers.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, now I can. Thank you.
Okay, sorry.
Commissioner Schneider,
Yes.
Judge Warren,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilson,
Yes.
the motion passes.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for that presentation. You know, the one slide I totaled, the number of kids was 4,886. And those are the kids we're fighting for. That's why we're here. And so thank you for bringing attention to that and for your hard work on those teams. Okay, next on the agenda, we'll move on to agenda item number 10, presentation from the OCCY Parent Partnership Board.
He just went to the restroom.
Okay, why don't we rearrange? Should we go on to number
Yes,
11?
yes.
We'll go to agenda item number 11. Presentation on proposed legislation to give OCCY the legal standing to present a deprived child's best interests. And I will turn it over to Attorney Chris Howard.
I didn't know there'd be quite as many people here, introvert inside of me. Now, unfortunately, I don't have a very fancy title behind my name. And I don't even like to call myself an attorney. I'm a meteorologist who practices law because I don't feel near as dirty when I say that, because I went to law school in my 40s specifically to represent deprived kids. And I went through the same interdisciplinary training program Mr. Covey went through at the Center for Child Abuse and Neglect, CCAN, on the Health Science Center. The science behind the child welfare cases is what interests me the most, and my goal is to be the first person in the nation to translate the science from the last 20 years that you read about in Harvard Center for Developing Child, to translate that into constitutional arguments. No one has done that before. No court in the nation has looked at that science yet. And I think it's coming in this past time. I was publishing the Bar Journal dealing with juries. I'm the guy who's trying to get rid of juries. Worked with Judge Warren on the report to the Supreme Court. Got jury trials and COVID. And this past spring, I provided the language for Senate Bill 706 to get rid of juries. Working with the legislature, very interesting experience. Not to be confused with pleasant experience, but it was interesting. And we got it to the Senate, 40-7. Ran into some issues in the House side, but it was still an interesting experience. What I'm here today to do is hopefully you and I can agree that the kids in these cases have a right to challenge statutes that harm them. They have a legal right to appeal verdicts that harm them, especially those who don't have any evidence to support them. I hope we can agree these kids have a right to have a brief filed on their report or on their behalf when there's an appeal. Over the last year, I've been tracking the appeals that have come out from the Supreme Court and Court of Appeals. And only about 63% of the time does the child's attorney actually file a brief on the child's behalf. If you get outside of Oklahoma and Tulsa counties, it goes down to 32%. So all of the counties where you have contract attorneys, only 1/3 of the time is the child's attorney actually filing a brief on the child's behalf. And if you read some of these opinions, you'll see where that's actually the difference in the case. I can think of two off the top of my head where terminations were reversed and remanded for another trial because the child's attorney did not adequately represent the child's best interest or did such a bad job of it that there was no evidence in the brief or in the record to support that termination was the child's best interest. So, this is a problem. I appreciate what y'all are doing, multidisciplinary teams, all these things for deprived kids. I'm very frustrated that the legal professionals are not holding up their end. Children's attorneys are not doing their job. And unfortunately, a lot of judges are not holding them accountable. And that can be for various reasons. Maybe they're complacent, maybe they're burned out. I don't know. Maybe just they don't know any better. But in any other context, what children's attorneys are doing would be malpractice. It would be worthy of a bar complaint. But unfortunately, Oklahoma child welfare is just what we do. It's just the status quo. I have a problem with that. So what I am asking you to do is we need a backdoor. Because if the child's attorney is not doing their job, if the juvenile judge is not going to hold them accountable, the child has no recourse. We've got to give the child a recourse. We've got to give them some way to protect their rights. And so what I'm presenting and offering you today is a solution to that problem. So we already have a statute in Title 10A, Article 2, that's the delinquency, where OGA can intervene for competency if they want to. DHS can intervene in a deprived case for a specified purpose. Of course, DHS's goals may not be directly aligned with the child in every case. So what I'm saying is we need a way for someone who represents kids, who wants the best for kids, OCCY, to be able to intervene for a specified purpose on behalf of these kids. And a specified purpose for the kids, not foster parents. But this is for these cases where in a narrow scope, you may have one child in one case. And if you read the white paper, you know the case I'm talking about. This kid is 8 years old. An 8-year-old kid has been in foster care for 8 years. Waited 4 years for a jury trial. Have not seen the parent in 4 years. Testified he wanted to be adopted. They didn't terminate. I think because they just didn't have it in them. Child's attorney did not appeal. Child's attorney didn't challenge the jury statute to begin with. Shortly thereafter, that same attorney filed an appeal on behalf of a parent. If you look at the facts, had no business appealing. It was a frivolous appeal. They didn't file one on behalf of the child. For a narrow scope like that, I think what we're proposing, a statute to allow OCCY to intervene on behalf of a child for a specified purpose would address that issue. But there's also a broader scope issue. I use the jury issue, that's the one I know best, but you know, you can think of other issues. I'm sure the commissioners here can think of other issues that impact other kids, multiple kids across multiple counties. Could funding for mental health services for these kids get down to a point it affects their constitutional rights? I mean, you know, you can make these arguments, but who's going to make them? So I can't get appointed to a case. I mean, I'm qualified. I tried, in fact, that 8-year-old kid 2 years ago, I asked the judge, hey, appoint me. I want to get this kid some permanency. And guess what? I'll visit with the kid because that kid was on their second child's attorney and neither one had ever visited with the kid. They're supposed to. Statute says, but that didn't happen. They said no. They thought the case was progressing along just fine. Kid spent a third of their childhood in foster care. But apparently the judge thought it was progressing along just fine. So I have a problem with that. But I can't do anything because I can't get in on the case. So again, I think to keep this simple, just a simple statute that says OCCY can intervene on behalf of a deprived child for a specified purpose. And I would use volunteers. Count me in. There are others. I'm sure they would do it. Lawyers for Children, Oklahoma Lawyers for Children, Tulsa Lawyers for Children. They use volunteers. There are lawyers out there who would love to get involved. Once you get some wins, once we get some things, some victories, once we help some kids, I think then you can go to the legislature and say, look, we're doing this with volunteers. Imagine if you gave us an attorney or two. So, you know, that would be the next phase. If you read the white paper, again, there's some questions at the end. I've got some answers for those, but I'd also like to hear what commissioners have to say. To me, keep it very simple. For those narrow scope where you have one kid in one case, maybe a subcommittee of 3, because those are usually time sensitive. But when you look at the broader issues, such as jury trial or funding, affecting juvenile constitutional rights, I think all commissioners should have a say in that. And that would be something that's not as time sensitive. To me, this is insurance. And just like any insurance, you don't want to have to use insurance because if you do, something bad has happened. But when something bad happens and you have it, you're pretty happy you have it. And so that's how I see the statute is it's insurance for these kids because it's very frustrating to hear and see what everyone's doing for these kids for a deprived case, but once you get to that case, their legal rights are not being protected. And the reasons for that, are multi-layered and not something we could fix instantly. But I could see this statute adding a layer of accountability. Because right now, if you say judges, you're accountable, they say, yeah, we're accountable to the voters. We don't tell the voters anything. But if we say, hey, OCCY had to intervene in 4-year cases over the last 2 years because you're not holding them accountable. I mean, that's something we can actually use as a metric to tell voters. So anyway, that's pretty much all I have as far as presenting. If there's any questions, I'd love to answer them.
I'll open it for questions.
I want to say I appreciate your passion and the comments that you're making and your experience in the system. And I've certainly been watching the system for almost 2 decades now. And I just already spoke earlier during finance about OCCY and what we're supposed to be doing and what statute allows us to do. And so I think now giving OCCY standing as an additional party in these already complicated cases. And then which ones do, I mean, I think it's a lot more than just a simple statute. Also having been around the legislator and I don't know that the legislator would support OCCY having this additional duties and roles and additional parties in these already complicated cases. You know, and I had a bill vetoed that would have put in some safeguards and balances around looking at kids that are going into detention. And so I think trying to say that our goal is to, of course, help the courts and inform the courts and help them improve sounds very simple, but is not always something that is supported by the legislator. So I appreciate your passion and I agree with all of your points, really. I am a little more optimistic about the system. I don't think all kids are not getting good representation. I don't think all kids are not getting what they have, having done jury trials in the space for sure. But for me, I just don't think this is the appropriate time for OCCY to seek legislation for additional duties for us to do. I don't think adding additional parties into these already complicated cases would be the improvement we need. There's certainly a lot of other improvements. They're working on the high quality legal representation for parents, which I think will bleed over to children. I think there are a lot of eyes on that. There's the legislation, which is still there around termination. But just for me as a commissioner and my experience in the system, I think OCCY having standing in these cases is just not the appropriate thing to do at this time.
And I would respond to that by saying, this is not intended to be in every case. I think it would be very rare that the statute actually gets used because, like you said, in most cases, people are doing their jobs. Look for that 8-year-old kid who's been in foster care 8 years, who will hopefully, will spend at least half his childhood in foster care. We failed. And I'm sure if you ask that kid, you know, would you rather have permanency? Would you rather have your rights protected, or would you rather, you know, make everybody happy that we don't have one more party involved? I think the kid would say, you know, I'd rather have my rights protected. Again, it's just a couple of cases, because I believe once you invoke this, judges don't want OCCY anywhere near those cases. It's insurance. I could see it being used once or twice early, and after that, it'll be exceptionally rare because they don't want to be held accountable. It's like you walk into the kitchen and the 3-year-old's got their arm, you know, elbow deep into the cookie jar. Yeah, they don't like getting caught. They don't like being held accountable. Neither do judges and lawyers. So I think once you use this once or twice, they won't have to worry about OCCY intervening. So to me, the bigger impact is for the long term and these bigger issues that involve bunches of kids. That who else is going to do it? Who else is going to bring that lawsuit on behalf of those kids? Because, you know, you look at the attorneys today, again, only in the contract, attorneys, only a third of them are even filing a brief on the child's behalf. So I think there is a need there. I think there is a niche, a window that because DHS already has the ability to do it. OGA has the ability to do it. I don't see it as a stretch.
Allow some time for the commissioners to have some discussion.
I would echo what Director Holt has said and agree wholeheartedly with that. When I was an assistant DA 20 years ago, I spent a lot of time, most of my time on the deprived docket and the delinquent docket. I have seen very passionate, and even when I was in private practice, I spent time representing children. I don't think, and from my experience, I've not seen a situation where I've got a child that I feel like was misrepresented. I have not seen a situation where there was a judge that I felt like didn't do their job. I believe there are a lot of, and probably some of the most passionate lawyers that I've seen are the ones in the courtrooms that are advocating on behalf of children. I mean, to say this is, and you know, with all due respect, to say this is only going to be a couple of cases, who's going to decide that? Because it boils down to an opinion, and it's going to mean somebody having to sit down and review every single case out of every single county. And the number of people that we're gonna have to involve to be able to do that, I think is going to be overwhelming. And I don't think that this is the appropriate place for this. I don't think this is OCCY's function. I know my staff, when we've had situations where there's an appeal, my staff, my attorneys work directly with the child's attorney to file a brief. So we're working in conjunction. Maybe the child's attorney didn't file a brief, but we've partnered with that child's attorney to advocate on behalf of the child when it goes up on appeal. So again, and I'm just gonna make my comments short. I don't think this is the appropriate place, and I don't know that I can support something like this as a commissioner on this board.
So are you saying that if you
Sir, I'd like,
look, if
we
you're
have some
saying,
time for discussion.
are you saying that if you look at the number of appeals on cases and they're maybe saying it's the state that has appealed a non-termination, that in your district, those are your district attorneys usually working with the child's attorney, but it's the state that does the appeal with the child's attorney assisting, likely because your ADAs have the time and experience to do the appeal work.
Right. Yeah,
Rather
and that's,
Instead
and-
of maybe a volunteer or a child's attorney
Right.
might not have the capacity to do
and then
that.
the flip side of that is when we have a parent who has appealed a termination, we're working hand in hand to make sure that the termination sticks. I mean, we're constantly looking at the best interest of the child and working with that attorney that represents the child to make sure that we do what's best for the child. And in rare occasions, we've had a disagreement between my staff and the child's attorney, but honestly, it's rare. And I think probably in your experience, as a juvenile attorney, working in a DA's office doing these cases, it's kind of rare that you see the position of the state and the child's attorney in opposition to one another.
Other discussion or comments or thoughts?
So I have one comment. I'm sorry, I was trying to get unmuted. I would wholeheartedly agree that there's some issues with children's representation. There's children that stay in the system too long. And all these other issues are all absolutely correct and they exist. I think I would echo the comment by District Attorney Hicks there that I think this is beyond the scope of OCCY statutory authority. I was trying to pull that up here while you guys were discussing it. I think if we were even to consider this, there'd have to be multiple amendments and it'd have to change the entity's authority as granted by the state statutes. Or as those currently stand, I can't support it either.
Yeah, I'll echo those comments. This isn't an area where I have subject matter expertise, so I defer to DA Hicks and Director Holt on this, but I was just coming at it purely from a standpoint of the statutory directive and mandate to OCCY. I mean, I think we're all here because we agree kids deserve a better life. We need to fix the parts of the system that aren't working well, but I'm not sure this is necessarily the right angle.
Are there any other comments or thoughts?
I would like to hear Chris's response to that.
Well, after working with the legislature this spring, to me, if you have to change a statute, you change a statute. And if you have to change OCCY statute, you change the statute. That to me is doable, is something within our control. So to me, that part is you can overcome. As far as some of these other things, I get it. I know you don't want another party involved, but again, I go back to that 8-year-old kid who's gonna spend half his childhood in foster care. Attorney is not doing what they need to do. Judge is not doing what they need to do. That kid has no recourse. Now, if OCCY is not the right entity, who is? So that'd be my question. I mean, who is better positioned to do this besides you? Because if there is one, let me know. I'll go plug them in.
Any other comments or questions?
I just have a-
How would the cases come to the attention of us or another entity?
Well, that's just, I don't see you having to review every case. To me, someone would come to you. So if you had like that little committee of 3 for something that's time sensitive, someone would come to you and say, hey, look, this is what's going on. Do you think this is something that you should look into? Is this something that we can do? So I didn't mean to imply that it would be every private case in the state. It's just there's a couple out there, or however many they are, where, you know, the kids' rights are just not being protected at all. I don't know how many that would be, but again, I don't think it would be that many.
I think as a foster parent, since 2012 and having 24 kids in my home, I can advocate as a foster parent and on the behalf of a child that out of my 24 kids, I've had one attorney contact my children. And I'm the one at the court every month, every 90 days, advocating for my kids in my home. And so it is hard for me because I 100% support you and your thoughts and your process. But I also agree with you that I don't know that OCCY is the avenue to go, but I don't know who is if it isn't us. I think on a personal level, I've seen OCCY get involved on a deprived case and advocate for what's in the best interest of a kid, just investigating DHS. And the outcome was in the child's favor. And so it is hard because I see both sides. I think that there's not enough here to say at this level, like, can we vote to say, yes, we would support you 100%, because what would that look like? You're saying a committee of 3. And how would the people know to even come to the committee and say, hey, this is what we need to do? Because so many times foster parents, if they got wind of that, it would blow up. I mean, it would blow up and people would be trying to advocate for the kids, and then that would just consume OCCY. And so I think we agree with what you're saying, but I don't think OCCY is the space to do it, but I don't know who to tell you to go to.
And honestly, my hope for today is I'm just cracking that door open. I didn't expect everybody to jump up and celebrate and say, hey, let's do this. I'm opening a door to some ideas that, again, if OCCY is not it, who is, just let me know. I'll go back in. But maybe you start thinking that, okay, maybe there is a piece here that we can do in a very limited scope, in a very limited way. So again, I'm just kind of crashing and just throwing this out there, and y'all are going to digest it and think about it. Hopefully, as you think about it, you may come up with a better idea or something, and we'll just, but again, there is a need there. Obviously, there is a need, there is a niche there. And I just don't know if these kids have no recourse, we need to give them a recourse. That's the whole point of the case.
Any other questions or comments for Mr. Cowher? All right, thank you for your presentation. We will move back to agenda item number 10, presentation from the OCCY Parent Partnership Board, and I will welcome up Ms. Montgomery.
Sorry, y'all, the meeting was going, and I was like, if I don't take a break now, we're gonna be in trouble. I didn't want to do the dance. Okay, my name is Wywana Montgomery. I am one of the newest members of the Parent Partnership Board, and I really appreciate the opportunity to present today. I know you've received our formal report, but I'm just here to share my personal experience, and I'll start by saying thank you so much for letting me go to one official meeting and then go all the way to Baltimore for the National Prevent Child Abuse America Conference. So I learned some very great information there and some tools I think that will help us in our work. So I will dive into the main reason that you are here to hear from me. My niece has a beautiful smile, dancing bright eyes, and a very infectious laugh, but that hasn't always been there. The laughter was sparse, the sparkle was gone in her eyes, and the light was completely dim. She came to live with us almost 6 years ago, all the way from my hometown, Seattle, leaving everyone she knew, everything she knew, her baby brother, her cousins, all kinds of family that was her support. Because my mother-in-law was her caregiver, because her own mother, my sister-in-law, had schizophrenia and bipolar due to getting a hold of bad drugs as a young person and her father was incarcerated most of her life. My mother-in-law was terminally ill with breast cancer and asked us to take her. There was nowhere else to go. Family there couldn't do it. We quickly learned that just providing a loving, stable home was not enough. She had almost every ACE, lots of trauma, kind of used to doing your own thing because everyone is exhausted. And if it makes you happy, we're going to let you do it anyway. So when we tried to provide structure, she thought we were being mean. So very quickly, once she got comfortable, the behavior escalated to a place where my mental health was on the brink. For only the second time in my entire life, I felt what I would describe as depression. I would be driving down the street and just burst out into tears. I'm 45 and never even had a glass of wine until I was 38. And I started to feel like, thank you, I needed to drink. And so I wouldn't buy it because I know that's how people become alcoholics. I've been married to her uncle for 24 years. And I looked at him one day and said, it is not you, but if we can't find a place for her to go, I'm gonna have to leave our home because I can't live like this. I was getting 2 to 4 hours of sleep. She was stealing our cars, wrecking them, all kinds of things. My own daughter, who's only 4 months different, would want to talk to me. And she's like, but I didn't want to bother you because I knew you were stressed out. So what I want you all to hear from a mental health and an OJA standpoint, it is very sad that it took her committing a crime and getting into OJA custody and becoming a youthful offender to finally get mental health care that we have been begging for 2 years. I used my EAP on my job, not a good fit, plus you only get 3 sessions. We had outpatient coverage that thankfully I had an employer that has a very strong stance on mental health, so there were no deductibles. I couldn't believe how much it cost when I saw the EOBs. I've since been laid off from that employer as of March, so they have no health insurance. She shouldn't have to commit a crime and be in OJA custody for 16 months in 3 different facilities to finally get the mental health care that was necessary. She just came home in December. And now, happily, I can say she's a totally different person. I told the judge when I hug her now, I'm not just going through the motions. That second court date when you said the family could hug her, I was not feeling her that day. Absolutely no desire to hug her. My husband kind of inched me forward. And it was so exhausting, so exhausting. Our family was like, you're just trying to keep on. I almost didn't even apply for a promotion. That was a $16,000 increase because I didn't feel like I had the mental capacity. So what I'm asking you all today to think about the barriers when you have private insurance. I find great providers that look great, and then a lot of them don't accept private insurance because there's too many hoops. Outpatient was simply not enough. And then when she got out, great. We got 5 months of family counseling with home visits once a week, but she was also supposed to have one-on-one therapy and a mentor. The one-to-one therapy and the mentor never came through. I called them twice. They never called me. The case manager called. The family therapist even tried to help. We could not get it. So what looks like help on paper is often a ghost resource. And I timed myself to try to be a great steward of time. There we go. Sorry, couldn't drown. It appears that it's there, but it's kind of not. They're understaffed. They don't have enough time. And it's hard to even know where to look when you are not engaged with DHS. We never went to DHS for support with her. No check, no benefits, none of that. We just got legal guardianship and stretched our budget. So I'm hoping that you heard some things today that you feel like you can work on as far as staffing and resources and helping families navigate when they don't know what to do and where to go. Thank you so much. And I'm going to be here to the end for questions.
Thank you so much for sharing your story. Questions or comments?
Everything you said, I can't wait to connect with you and still you to put on my parent board too. I mean, collaborate.
Or stress her out some. We'll take that as flattery, right?
Thank you so much for sharing. We appreciate it. Okay, next on our agenda, we will move on to agenda item number 13, legislative report. I'll welcome up Marcia Johnson.
Mrs. Montgomery, you're a tough act to follow. Please don't ever put me out. So I'll just be short and sweet. You all have the list of interim studies that I'm tracking in your packets. The Senate has started hearing some studies, but none of the ones that we're tracking over here. So just waiting on those. And I did want to point out is House Interim Study 29, and that did stem from OCCY, from the working group that's been looking at the impact of medical marijuana edibles on young kids. So we'll be attending that on November 6th, and Representative Rowe, Chairman Rowe, is good enough to request that study for us. And hopefully that working group, along with the legislature, can come up with some recommendations that we can potentially look at next year. Of course, that would come to you for you to vote on for the legislative agenda. The only other thing I have is, I'm sure you've heard that the governor has called the legislature back into special session. They're going to convene on October the 3rd. The call primarily is to look at reducing personal income taxes to the point that they can be eliminated. So we'll just have to watch what the legislature does. Won't get into any of the back and forth that I've heard about. You could read that. So it should be interesting to see what happens, but we'll definitely be keeping a close eye on that because that could have far-reaching impact. That's all I have.
Sure. Thank you so much. Do you have any questions for Marcia? Okay, thanks, Marcia, for being here. Next on the agenda is agenda item number 14. We'd like to just continue the discussion that we started at our August commissioners retreat regarding the cross system work, breaking down those silos. And for expedience, I would suggest that we adjourn from this meeting briefly and break out into 3 ad hoc groups for a brief 20-minute discussion. So would anybody like to entertain a motion to adjourn to enter into those ad hoc committees?
So we go into 20-minute breakout groups and then come back for further discussion.
Just to report out.
Just a report out. Will be the topic of the discussion in the group. There are questions at each table. So we have 3 tables set up and we've got some questions for you to consider, and someone could just write down what you thought.
No motion or wanting to table that?
I don't exactly understand the purpose of the 3-person group versus all of us discussing it. I'm just curious.
We're thinking that it would allow more time for you to talk if there are less people around the table. And you could record and then we could have a bigger report out. We just thought it'd be easier for discussion, but we can do it here if you'd like.
It's like a continuation of what we did at the retreat.
Right, so the questions are, so we were thinking, what type of information or data do you need as a commissioner? So the topic, if you remember, was talking about considering working together on children's mental health. So what do you believe you need as a commissioner to have a good understanding of the state of children and youth mental health? So what data or information would you need? What challenges do you think you see across the state? What do you think we're doing well? And then what next steps could commissioners take collectively to improve the system?
I think for me, it might be best, I mean, if we can afford to delay it. Is there a time thing we're up against on this going into, okay.
Just think we didn't want to lose any momentum from the
Yeah.
conversation that we had in August.
I might like to see those and be able to come with some information, maybe a little bit, but I mean, I'm willing to do whatever, but might be better for me like a group discussion instead of breaking out. Just two suggestions, either table it or do it all as a full group.
I think maybe my suggestion would be that you email us those questions. And then maybe at the next commission meeting, we could be prepared to either discuss it as a group or.
Yeah.
And maybe some of the
Might
notes
help
from
me.
the retreat, so we know what's already been discussed and proposed.
And I wasn't there, yeah, so just got some notes from the retreat.
I would like to confer with my superintendents in my schools too, that serve the kids each day. And I don't know, I'd just like to get some of their ideas too. That would be beneficial for my input, so.
I think we could ask our staff, who we represent and come back with.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to have that.
Bigger.
Okay.
I'd love to have that conversation with my assistants that are assigned to the juvenile docket as well as the judges that are in those courtrooms on a daily basis.
Okay.
I'll tell that I have it all right here, just
Yeah,
ready
you
to.
can email us.
Yeah, we can do
They're
that.
the
We can
ones
do
with
that.
boots on the ground, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we will send those out and then table this agenda item for the next meeting to do an open discussion. So I will move on to agenda item number 16, Director's Report. I'll turn it over to you, Matt.
Well, thank you very much. I apologize that I have not provided you with a written report. I will get that done. It's just, there's been a lot going on and we had a lot of preparation for this meeting. I know a lot of these presentations take a lot of thought and a lot of time, so thank you for that. Hey, here's a few things that will be in the report. As far as personnel changes, Lisa Rhodes, after 20+ years, has resigned, or it was in June, I believe, from the Child Death Review Board as program manager. So we'll be hiring for that. It was an unbelievably long, wonderful, dedicated career. And we are very grateful for all that she did. It's an extremely difficult job. And so we were very happy for her to have a break from that, but at the same time, sorry for the loss in the institutional knowledge that she brought. We do need to fill that position. And if you remember, we were given 2 additional positions by the Capitol to add to that team. So we're hiring for Child Death Review Board, but I have to say, I want to give a lot of thanks to the 2 staff that are remaining, Joseph McGrath and Elizabeth, Kopp, and they have really just gone like gangbusters and set up extra meetings, and they're just really, really working to keep things moving, and in fact, are speeding things up. So kudos to them for all that they're picking up and doing, and I'm really impressed. Secondly, I wanted to just update you on the medical marijuana task force. We are calling it Stewards for a Healthy Marijuana Policy. And just to let you know, I think we really like this concept of stewards of anything. I think that's really what a lot of us are in this room. So we may in the future look at other topics and have task forces, and we'll call it the stewards of whatever. So if you hear us talking about stewards work, we're really talking about a subject matter focus and a time limited ad hoc and getting something done and then moving on. But that group has also had a retreat the day before yours, along with the Montana Institute. We're grateful for Marcia and the work she's done to get us an interim study. There are 3 focus, just as a reminder. The first was our concern for seeing particularly littles, children under the age of 3 or so, who are accidentally, inadvertently getting into edibles or anything else laced with product that is injuring them and ending up in the ER. We see those reports along with DHS. They're coming from DHS. And if you don't care about even just the impact on the children, the costs to the medical system is something that should concern folks. There's not a week that goes by that we don't see at least one of these incidents, and these kiddos end up in the ER, and it's just taking a lot of time and energy and money to treat these kids when we know that was a preventable situation. And then while the group was meeting, we really discovered that there were 2 other areas of concern that all of these systems were seeing. Secondly, just increased use of marijuana. Marijuana of teens, because it's so accessible now and it is floating around households and they see parents using it. And so it just seems that the cultural norm has shifted somewhat again. And then thirdly, we're hearing from pregnant mothers during home visits that they have stopped smoking cigarettes because they know that's harmful, but they've switched it out for marijuana because they believe it to be safer. So we know we have some education in that area, and we really want to tackle that as well. So those are the three areas that we're talking about. That group has really gone like gangbusters. I want to say, I really want to give a shout out to the Oklahoma Medical Marijuana Authority. They have had people at those meetings every time, good leadership with good insight, and you just know how fast and hard they're trying to play catch up. So I really want to give them a shout out, because every time I say they're at the table, people are like, really? I'm like, well, of course, they're not excited about these issues either. And then thirdly, or next, I want to say the Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services as well has provided a lot of really good, consistent support to that group. And I just want to give them a shout out. So look forward to a report from that group, and then this interim study, and perhaps we'll have some recommendations, maybe some legislative, maybe not. Maybe we're looking at policy changes or who knows what. So we'll just see where it goes, but I'm really grateful for the time that's been put into that. I also want to thank, on a totally different subject, Mahbub, your presentations are so good. And I cannot imagine standing up and giving a presentation in a second language. I just want to say, I think that is so impressive. And so thank you so much. You've brought so much professionalism and joy to our agency, and we appreciate it. So I really can't. Every time I see either Isabel or Mahbub speak, and I realize it's not their native tongue, I've tried to speak another language. It's ugly. So let me just tell you, I can only speak in the current. I cannot conjugate in the past. So anyway, it makes it really difficult to talk. I also want to give a shout out to on the finance. I want you to think about this. For those of you who've been around as long as I have or longer, when I came to OCCY in end of 2017, 2018, we couldn't even pay for our salaries with our appropriations. We had to seek 4E fund to finish off our payroll and then to keep the lights on or have a copier or anything, much less. And I just want to say the collaboration, which Danielle Dill and the PNC staff has sought out, but it's your funding that is paying for those activities and keeping us afloat. The fact that our portfolio, if you will, is diversified makes me feel good. Tavon Lewis, Mr. Lewis's position, Caitlin, Isabel, they're paid by other state agencies' dollars. They're not paid by an appropriation. They are here because of the generosity of other agencies and systems. And I think it's beautiful. And I just want to say thank you for that, because we realize it's a sacrifice on your part, and you're believing that they are accomplishing something for the betterment, and it doesn't go unnoticed. So it's not, a long-term commitment that I can guarantee, but I hope as long as you see productivity and concrete things coming and good improvements, that you will continue to support those efforts. I just cannot thank you enough. So there's that. And then a point of personal privilege, I think would be remiss if today is significant in this country. 60 years ago, there was a bombing at the 6th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham, Alabama, and 4 young girls were killed. And it was based on hatred and racism and terrorism. And I think we should acknowledge it, because this is part of what we do, is to create a better world. I'm sorry. I just think it's a terrible thing. And I think we should thank you for being here and serving, because we're trying to combat that. Sorry. It's just an important day. So I wanted to acknowledge that. And I know that you're part of that process of creating peace and love, and thank you. So that's it. And then I need Kleenex.
My grandmother attended that church.
Wow.
At the same time that happened. My family's from Birmingham originally.
God bless you. I've been there and I've toured it, and I have to say it is sacred ground. And when you were there, it is so meaningful and so powerful. And the thing that really makes me sad is, at least when I was there a couple of years ago, the memorial portion that they've kind of set aside in the church, someone should give them a bunch of money. It deserves better. I mean, it's like nice parishioners, congregants who are creating these things, and it needs to have real funding and it needs to be lifted up because it's an unbelievably important part of history. And I just hope everyone has an opportunity to go visit because, you know, we think about how meaningful our memorial is here. They deserve all of that and more there too. Little children, and it just, yeah, it's so impactful. So go if you can. I would highly encourage it.
Annette, just to speak a little bit to what you said about collaboration. Collaboration like that to fund positions doesn't happen without leadership. So thank you for your leadership at this commission and for everything you're doing to bring people together to serve kids and make things better for kids in Oklahoma. So we appreciate you. Does anybody have questions for Annette regarding her report? Hearing none, are there any announcements?
Can I make one? I sent a flyer to Kathy and I asked her to share it, but on October 17th, everyone is invited. We are celebrating our 30th as an agency. And it represents a whole lot of work for 30 years, helping remove barriers for individuals with disabilities. And I hope the address and everything's on it. It's at our state office in the parking lot. So we're praying for good weather because we do not have a backup plan. Because we have almost 500 people already registered. We ask that you register and just come and have a great time. We've got Dr. Deb coming to speak and Lieutenant Governor. And we've got lots of talent and we're going to give it, I have asked somebody that was present during the signing when Governor Walters made us a standalone agency, and she's going to give a historical perspective as for all the people that advocated to have this agency. So I'm super proud to be the leader of the agency, and I hope everybody will come and enjoy the day. So
and buy a t-shirt
and come support us. But we will have food trucks and, you know, and just lots of games. Everybody's getting into it. So anyways, please come. So
I may miss it. What time did you say it started?
I think it's going to start at 10. It says it on the flyer. I think it's like 10 to 2. It's, yeah. Yay.
Congratulations. Any other announcements? Okay, next on the agenda is chairperson comments. I'm not going to be the one between you all and lunch. My comment was that I appreciate Annette and I appreciate the work you're doing. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So maybe second.
Second, we are adjourned. We need to vote.
Sorry, I just want to get your motion to do second.
I was first, you second.
Okay, perfect, thanks.
I think I was first.
I always look at